Can I ask you something? And I want you to sit with it before you answer. I want to take a guess about you. I'm guessing you're not someone who hasn't tried. I'm guessing you've done the therapy or the coaching or the mindfulness app or the journaling or the books, maybe the medication, maybe a really thorough attempt at better boundaries that lasted about 3 weeks before the load came back and the boundaries dissolved along with it. I'm guessing you've had moments of genuine insight where something clicked and you thought, yes, this is it. This is the thing that will change it. And you felt real hope. And then a few weeks later or a few months later, you found yourself back in the pattern, maybe worse than before, because now you have the added weight of having tried something that didn't work. And the quiet conclusion that you drew, the one you probably haven't said out loud but have definitely thought, was maybe I'm just not someone who can change. I need you to hear me when I say that conclusion is wrong. But the reason it feels true is completely understandable. And today I want to explain why. Welcome back to Unapologetic Edge. I'm Philippa Scott. Last week, we named the patterns: achievement, addiction, people pleasing, hypervigilance, control, collapse. And I asked you which one you felt in your body. This week, the question is why? If you've recognized these patterns before, perhaps in a different language, perhaps through a different lens, why haven't they shifted? The answer to that question is not about your resilience, your commitment, or your capacity for change. It's about something far more specific. And once you understand it, the previous attempts start to make a different kind of sense. Here's the core of it. Most of the tools available to intelligent, self aware professionals for managing patterns and changing behavior are cognitive tools. They work at the level of thought. They ask you to reframe, to challenge, to replace one thought with another, or to develop insight about why you do what you do. And those tools are not useless. Insight is valuable, reframing is useful. Cognitive approaches have helped enormous numbers of people with enormous numbers of problems. But they are the wrong tool for a nervous system problem. And the patterns we're talking about, the ones that come back regardless of how much insight you have about them, are nervous system patterns. They live in your body. They run below the level of conscious thought, and they activate before your prefrontal cortex has even registered what's happening. Think about the last time you were in a stressful situation at work and you noticed yourself shrinking or snapping or over explaining or taking on more than you had capacity for. And you knew in that moment that you were doing it. You had full cognitive awareness that it was happening and you couldn't stop. That's not a failure of insight. That is the nervous system doing something the cognitive mind cannot override in real time. Telling someone with a dysregulated nervous system to think differently is like telling someone with a broken leg to walk it off. The intention is right. The tool is wrong. You can have complete insight into a pattern and still be completely unable to stop it. That is not personal failing. That is the architecture of how the nervous system responses work. I want to be careful here because I am not anti therapy. I'm a trained therapist. I believe in the therapeutic relationship and what it makes possible. And I also have a clear eyed view of where traditional talk therapy has its limits. Talk therapy works at the level of story. It helps you understand the narrative of your experience, to place your patterns in context, to develop compassion for the version of you who needed them. And that's genuinely valuable work. What it often cannot do, particularly traditional cognitive approaches, is reach the place where the pattern is stored, because patterns are not stored as stories. They are stored as body states. as nervous system configurations or as the particular shape your physiology takes when certain conditions are detected. You can spend years understanding why you people please and still people please because the understanding lives in your prefrontal cortex and the people pleasing lives in your brainstem, and they're not in conversation with each other. This is why people come out of years of therapy with tremendous self knowledge and still find themselves running the same pattern in new relationships, new jobs, new contexts. The insight is real, the pattern is also real, and they've been addressed with different tools. The same limitation applies to most of what gets sold under the banner of mindset work: affirmations, visualization, reframing, gratitude practices, goal setting frameworks. Again, not useless. These tools can produce genuine shifts in how people relate to their circumstances. They can interrupt rumination loops. They can create enough cognitive space to make a different choice, but they cannot reach the survival response that was encoded before you had language. The professionals I work with who have done the most mindset work are often the most frustrated because they are the most clearly able to see the gap between what they know and what they do. They have a sophisticated intellectual understanding of their patterns and a completely intact physiological compulsion to run them. That gap is not evidence that they need more mindset work. It is evidence that the mindset is not where the work needs to happen. The work needs to happen in the nervous system, in the body, at a level where the pattern is actually stored. And there are ways to do that. They are specific and they are genuinely different from everything that works purely at a cognitive level. That's what this week is about. That's what next week is about. Next week, I'm going to explain what actually happens in the nervous system when a pattern is forming, why it stays, and what it takes to change it at the level where it lives, not as theory, as a map you can actually use. Now, before you go, if last week or this week has named something you've been carrying for a long time, the burnout audit is worth 5 minutes of your time. It'll give you a specific stored picture of which patterns are running highest in your system right now. That data is the starting point for everything else. It's free, and the link is in the show notes. I'm Philippa Scott. This is Unapologetic Edge. I'll see you next week.